Hey, how about some Thursday Convo for Oak Ridge Ford in London, Ontario? OakRidgeFord.com. I'm Norm along with Mike. It is March 10th, 2022. The Leafs host the Coyotes tonight at Scotiabank Arena. They've won two in a row. They have the Heritage Classic coming up, Buffalo, Toronto, in Hamilton on Sunday. They're third in the division. They're tops in power play, top five in penalty kill. They have one of the best players on the planet fronting the organization, yet we're very concerned for a multitude of reasons. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Norm. Yeah, I was up in Toronto for the game against Seattle on Tuesday, and it's a game that sort of resorted to the similar form of the Leafs, flying out to a early lead and then sort of getting dozy, like they've taken an overdose of Sominex or something, and giving the lead back and even falling behind Seattle before they came back and charged in the latter half of the third period to win 6-4. And as you said, Matthews is arguably the best player in the league. He's going to be a finalist for the Hart, and he's probably going to break Rick Vai's franchise record for most goals. But the question is whether this team can do anything with that talent past just getting into the playoffs and having some success in the postseason. And the news that came out this morning, I don't think is going to help their playoff positioning because there were questions enough as it was in terms of the goaltending with Mrazek coming back from the injury and playing sort of inconsistently, one good game, one bad game, and Campbell has not been the same since December the 1st. I think we've categorized that and quantified that over the last 4 or 5 convos. And now this morning comes out that Campbell is out a minimum of 2 weeks with a rib injury. And Morgan Riley indicated this is something he's been dealing with off and on. So, maybe this is a factor in his drop in play. All I know is now you have to question even more the depth of the goaltending in the Leaf organization and whether Kyle Dubas is going to have to at least add a veteran depth goalie before March the 21st.
This is the Convo for Oak Ridge Ford in London, Ontario, OakRidgeFord.com. We have new vehicles on their way. Our pre-owned inventory is growing. You can check us out at OakRidgeFord.com. You know how to get at me in various ways on social media, the Leafs Convo at gmail.com. If you got a hoodie from us over the last couple of weeks, be sure to post a picture. I'll throw it into community. And speaking of community, we have some questions from our listeners and viewers and consumers that we're going to share before the end of this convo. It's good to be with you on this Thursday. Don't forget the big Sunday spectacular, of course, will follow this, and we're leading up to a trade deadline that could get interesting. The question is, do trades of magnitude make any sense for this organization the way it's composed right now, the way it's playing right now? And is are making major changes for short-term game the right thing for the long game, Michael?
Well, I don't know whether there's going to be a capability there for Kyle Dubas to make the big moves, more than one move. I mean, he talked about it last week at the Heritage or at Tim Hortons Stadium in Hamilton when he had a media availability that more than likely he's limited to one move, and unless he got bad news about Jake Muzzin. And Muzzin skated again today, and they're not rushing him back. Believe me, it's a second concussion. They want to make sure his head is clear. They want to make sure he's 100% coming back. But they're also saying, based on the fact that he's skating right now, that it's more than likely he's not going to be sitting out the last 3 or 4 weeks of the regular season. They want him to come back and be like up to speed when the end of the season occurs in late April, and when the playoffs begin in early May. So that limits them probably to I would say one move for a defenseman, and maybe they can make a move for a veteran minimum contract. And if that's a forward, fine. If that's a goaltender,
Wow,
said, I mean, there are a couple goalies out there in terms of veteran guys that they could probably get for a reasonably cheap price. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to. I'm not saying that these teams will trade them to the Leafs, but I know that a guy like Craig Anderson, a veteran goaltender who's played pretty well since coming back from a neck injury with the Sabres, they've got a lot of goaltenders in their system. They've got a few veteran goaltenders. They probably, if Anderson is amenable to being traded, would move him, and it probably would be for a low to mid round pick. So that might be a possibility, but the Leafs may say if this is a short term thing with Campbell, they'll just ride it out. And what I say though is, I think their chances of catching Tampa or Florida in the Atlantic Division and finishing in first or second place, I think that unless they just go on, unless Peter Mrazek just goes on a ridiculous streak, I think those chances of first or second place are done.
We know the Leafs can score goals incredibly, but they give up too many. The last 5-6 games, it was 4+ goals per game. And the way the team is playing right now, there are no signs that the group will buckle down defensively, batten down the hatches on the back end, let fewer in, and continue to score at the pace they are. There's just nothing to indicate that that will happen. Mike, looking at Auston Matthews right now, you'll give me the lowdown on Erik Källgren here in a second, and if it's him and Mrazek going back and forth for the next month or so, how much is Källgren going to play? But on Auston Matthews, okay, so 43 goals, 75 points. He could win the Rocket Richard Trophy, could win the Hart, may even win the Art Ross, and wouldn't that be fun? The thing is, Mike, these may be the best of times for this organization. Auston Matthews is developing into the greatest Leaf of all time, one of the best players of this generation, a generational talent, clearly, night in and night out. It's a great show. But we may look back on this era and identify Auston Matthews as the reason we gave a shit, right? When you have a player that good, you're going to have your team's going to get points. You're going to have the residual and the beneficial, things that happen because he's just so talented. But when we look at the rest of the mosaic of the team, the composition of the team that is supporting this guy, to me at this point, it does not look like a team that's ready to make a Stanley Cup run. And when I'm processing what's happening with Auston Matthews, and I do go on about how we shouldn't care about it because we want to focus more on how the team competes and the team achieves. I don't think that's fair, and I want to retract that. I'm really excited to watch what Auston Matthews does, and I hope he achieves. The sky's the limit for this guy, and I hope he achieves things that not only no Leaf has achieved before, but very few players across the league have achieved before. Because this may be as good as it gets. Watching this guy, put the Leafs on the map, but not win a Stanley Cup. There's just not enough there behind him, at least at this point. And he's been on the team now, what, 6 years? He may not be a Maple Leaf forever.
No, and he's got 2 years left in his contract, and I mean it's a situation where they've got to make hay with him over the next couple of years, or
Sure.
he could walk. I mean we don't know what the future holds. I think the organization is going to be, they'll pay him the max.
Of course they will. But will that mean enough to him?
Well, the thing is we don't know whether he wants to be here long term. We won't know that for a while. So right now, like you said, I think they just have to enjoy what is going on right now and maximize their opportunity to be able to win with him. And I mean, we'll see where it goes.
See, we're enjoying the Auston Matthews show. What I'm getting at is that may be the extent of it. The Auston Matthews show. How on earth do you have a talent this incredible? Oh, Mike's taking a call from Kyle Dubas. How often do you get a player of this magnitude? Very, very, it's limited over the life of a franchise, right? And then the idea is to build around him, which they've tried to do. have they built around him properly, right? With all that money sunk into the 4 guys up front, the idea was the team would just be an offensive juggernaut, overcome the opposition. You could piecemeal the rest of it, and you'd be on your way.
And that the cap would expand, and that the 40 million that they were spending on the 4 players would not be 50% of the cap, but would be, say, 30 to 35, and they'd be able to add to the play. And that was the whole plan. And of course the pandemic destroyed that, and revenues have been limited, and the cap will stay at 81.5 for the next couple of years. So really that's had a situation where, the Leafs, I mean, you can't predict the future. Nobody would predict that a global pandemic would shut the league down and limit revenues. I mean, it just was not predictable.
Mm-hmm.
But now that's the reality over the next couple of years, is that they're going to be dealing with an $81.5 million cap. And that's why, again, and I know people get sick of me saying it. If they don't have success this year with that core 4 group, and they lose in the first round, and you're spending all that money on those 4 forwards, and you have to pivot. You have to be able to say, okay, this isn't working. We need to do something different here. Now, the question is whether Kyle Dubas will be the one that makes that adjustment. We don't know.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to predict that, because we don't know what's going to happen in the playoffs. But all I can say is, if they do lose in the first round, it's either Dubas or some new general manager that's going to say, okay, what do we got to do different? And doing what needs to be done different is, I think you're going to see one of that core 4 group moved out in favor of getting defensive help and
Mm-hmm.
making this team tougher to play against, like Florida, like Tampa, like Washington and Carolina, like the teams that are their competitors in the Eastern Conference.
Mm-hmm. You don't need to break the record for goals for in a season to win a Stanley Cup.
No.
If you're among the best ever in goals against, you have a really good shot, because teams just can't score against you, and that's the idea in the playoffs. Limit goals against and score when you have the chance. This is the Convo, Norm, along with Mike. We appreciate all of the support, especially lately. Our viewership and listenership has upticked, and it means a lot to us. It gives us more incentive to provide content for you. And this is how the Convo's supposed to roll, with the brother and the sisterhood coming together, all in the name of lamenting this team that sucked us in and won't let us go, Mike. In terms of wholesale change or pivoting or redirecting or changing the complexion of the organization to an extent, clearly you need money to do that. And when money's tied up, you have to find a way to untie up money, right? Loosen up money and make it available. So, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, I can envision a scenario where Kyle Dubas is on the phone entertaining transactions for Marner, Tavares, and Nylander. Which of the 3 is the easiest to move? I think we understand who that is, number 88. But at the end of the day, if the team needs to make changes, it will have to. I don't know if Kyle Dubas is, if based on where we are right now, if he's, willing to pull the plug on his agenda and his philosophy, and if that's indeed the case for the organization to, at least conceptually succeed in a different way, Kyle Dubas may not be the one to make the adjustments.
Sorry. I got like 50 things going on here. So
but is your cat freaking out?
No. I've got my niece here and her son, and
it's okay. We're not gonna be too long, Mike. Why don't you hit that point? I'll do some questions. Tell me about Eric Shalgren, and we'll get out of here.
No,
bring her in.
No, it's my here. Come here, George.
Go say hi.
Oh, it's George.
Nah, it's my. There you go.
Oh, hello.
Yeah. Okay. Now you're
Sabres fan, obviously.
Yeah, unfortunately, he's got brain damage. He's a Sabres fan. Okay.
Just stick with the Sabres. The Leafs aren't much better, my friend George.
Well, that's correct.
That's true. Okay, so I mean, this is the situation. I mean, right now, everything is in limbo. The team is playing well. Auston Matthews is one of the best players in the league.
Yeah.
There's reason for optimism, but also there's reason for skepticism because of the fact that they're in a division with two of the best teams in the league, and they're going to face one of them in the first round. And I don't know, Tampa Bay is better, more experienced, has better goaltending, has better defense, has better forwards. Could they beat them? Sure. Anything can happen. If Campbell is hot, if Mrazek gets hot, if something like that happens, sure. Could they beat Florida? Florida's a more physical team. Yeah, they can do it. But is it likely? I look at the matchups of those two teams, and I would have to say, if I'm betting, that Florida and Tampa are favored. It doesn't mean that the Leafs can't beat them. And if they fall into the wild card, there's no great change either, because if they fall into the second wild card or the first wild card, they're going to face either Tampa or Florida or Carolina. Would a matchup against Freddie Anderson and the Carolina Hurricanes be something that would be interesting? Sure, all this is interesting, but the thing is, we don't know what is going to happen, and there are too many question marks with this team right now. And you see Sheldon Keefe trying to shuffle the deck here today at the morning skate. They split up Tavares and Nylander because that line has been dead for, Tavares has had a couple goals. Nylander, he made a horrendous giveaway on Tuesday that resulted in a shorthanded goal and giving Seattle momentum. They've moved him down to the third line. Now your second line is a rookie in Nick Robertson, Tavares, and Andre Kasha. And Nylander's been moved down with Simmons and Alex Kerfoot. So, right now they're mixing the deck, they're stirring it up, they're seeing what they can do. And they're trying, and I think that there's a move that Dubas is going to make before the deadline. The question is for what? The question is what goes out the other way. Everything is in limbo. Everything is in flux. We'll see.
And what is Nylander to you? He's Dr. Mickey and Jekyll Wiki, or what's
no, if he's
Jekyll and Mickle?
Like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde when he's good. Dr. Jekyll is the good guy.
So Dr. Jekyll's the good one.
Yeah, so it's
Mr. Hyde
is the bad guy, and it's Dr. Nylander or Mr. Willie. And for the last month or so, he's been Mr. Willie a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I won't even go any further than that. Just Mr. Willie.
Yeah, and now he's on the third line, and his faction, right? They're all complaining that he's just someone else. It's someone else's fault. From just in totality, the whole thing. If it were gone, it wouldn't bother me. And again, I hate to say this, and I'm not picking on William Nylander. If he were not on this team, and there was a replacement, whether another forward or somebody like him on defense, we wouldn't even notice his absence. I hate to say it. Let's go through some comments and some questions that were left for us in community on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Leafs Convo. Arish OG from day one. Do you think Muzzin will come back before the end of the regular season? What's your final prediction on who the Leafs are going to get? Mike, you've addressed a couple of those things, but you can continue.
I think Muzzin will be back before the end of the regular season, no doubt. Whether he stays healthy throughout the rest of the regular season into the playoffs, knock on wood. Of the number of players, and today Ristolainen re-signed with Philadelphia, so that there's one guy off the board. John Klingberg, who the Leafs made inquiries on, Dallas is in a playoff spot right now. They're not going to move him. I would say if they're going to go after somebody, and it's a question of whether they can get him, I think it'll be Josh Manson.
Oh, that would be fun. Yeah. Rob M. We Leafs fans tend to overvalue our players. Kerfoot has value to the Leafs, and I like him as a player, but maybe his highest value is as part of a trade for a D-man. Yes or no?
No. Maybe in the offseason, yes. Maybe they're going to have to clear that $3.5 million salary. He's extremely versatile. He's played well on the second line on the wing. He's playing center tonight. He gives them that kind of in case somebody gets injured, Kerfoot fits in, and he's got 30 assists. Yeah. He's a good player. Now,
it's Yadamotes.
Yeah, well, no, but I mean,
Seriously.
he's gonna probably end up with 50 points at least.
Sure.
And
Everybody's getting points on this team, Mike. It's an offensive force. We all
right.
know that.
And he's a penalty killer, and he
Yeah.
can play multiple positions. So, but the point is that with the additions that they may need to make
Mm.
next season, can you pay a $3.5 million salary to Alex Kerfoot? I don't know. You may have to devote that to the defense. You may have to devote that to a new goaltender, or to re-sign Campbell. So I don't know whether he's going to be back next year. I don't think they're going to move him. I mean, there was talk that he would be moved to Vancouver as part of the JT Miller trade. I talked to somebody who covers the Canucks. They're not trading JT Miller, so I don't think that's happening. So I don't think Kerfoot's going anywhere.
You'd hope a guy like Kerfoot would be a stir the pot kind of player in a long playoff run, but the Leafs have to put themselves in a position to go on a long playoff run. And
He,
if you could supplant him with somebody of better defensive skill,
Norm,
you would do that.
he was their best center in the playoffs
Yeah.
last year. He was
Yeah.
better than Auston Matthews, and Tavares was hurt. That line, remember, the line that scored last year was Galchenyuk,
Right.
Kerfoot, and Nylander.
Mhm.
And Kerfoot was their best center last year.
Yeah. So we got to look back at all the playoffs gone by of this era, and they've been all been a failure because they've never managed to get past the first round. We can talk about how great Nylander was. Yes, he was great, but Matthews sucked, Marner sucked, Tavares wasn't there, and he was doing great things at a time the Leafs were unbelievably imploding, and it still pisses me off to talk about it.
Yes.
Playoff before that, Marner was fine, Matthews was fine. They just couldn't get it done in the 3-5 versus Columbus. The playoff before that, Nylander was garbage, but nobody talks about that. Marner was great. None of it matters anymore. What we got to focus on what's happening next. The problem is memories of the failure and the expectation of failure based on this team not necessarily giving us indications that it's finally ready based on the way it's playing. It's just one big coagulation of negativity, and we apologize if we come across that way right now. But even after the team's won 2 in a row, and there were some really good things on the horizon, yeah, again, we knew that sentiment and that worry and that fear would prevail over everything we have done, and that we'll continue to do. It is what it is until we see some light, and light starts with the team being successful in the playoffs. A few more comments. J.A. Scott, what could Nylander realistically bring back to the Leafs at -12? His lazy defensive play is bringing down that second line. This is not a
Yeah.
Nylander shit-on-a-thon,
No.
but we're
But
talking about him. So what do
but
you say to J.A. Scott there, Mike?
but JA predicted the future. He -12. Now he's moved to the third line. They're trying to get him jump started. So what can he bring back? I think let's just say this. I think he could bring back either a player that could play on their top four defensively, or they trade him for draft picks and assets that could be flipped for that player.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, it's clearing the salary, it's adding assets. What assets that would be, we don't know. But I think he has a lot of value around the league because he can score.
Yeah,
and there are scorers needed around this league. So, am I advocating trading him and just to get him out of town? No, I'm saying a tactical move to move him out for a player that addresses another area of need that will help this team overall. If you can't get that, then you keep him, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's important. Any high velocity offensive player you move out, you bring back a player of the same caliber, but who can do different things, do the things that help to diversify what the Leafs can be about. Right, Mike? I mean, it's just a very top-heavy offensive kind of team, and over the last month, giving up the amount of goals that it has, the inability to play a strong shutdown defensive game. OG's converts anybody who's thinking differently than us, and that's fair. We encourage it. Tell me why this team, the way it's put together right now, is on the verge of greatness. Let's see, Brad Tyndall. Do we really need our D to contribute offensively in the playoffs? I would certainly be happy to have 6 stay-at-home guys Making good first passes, boxing out in front of the net, and breaking up the cycle. Do you think this changes at any point, Mike?
No, I mean they don't need another offensive defenseman. They need a more stay-at-home guy. I mean, okay, Ilya Lyubushkin has lived up to the expectations that were talked about when they acquired him. Is he an offensive dynamo? No. He's tough.
I don't care if he scores
Yeah,
goals, Mike. Who
right.
cares?
They have enough of that. That's the thing. You need a balance. You
Yeah.
need, like for example, Tampa. They have Hedman who can do both things. They have Sergachev who can do both things. McDonough can play at both ends of the ice. Eric Cernak is more of a defensive defenseman. He's big and tough. We know what Bogosian is. So they have guys who are multi-dimensional.
Right.
But there are other teams out there. They have offensive defensemen and they have defensive defensemen. That works too. This team right now, I mean, I think Liljegren is going to end up being more of a defensive type. He's not an offensive dynamo. He's not bad.
Mm-hmm.
Sandin, I think, will be a future point man on the power play. Riley. I mean, but they really don't have, other than Muzzin, a guy who's a nut cutter who can be physical and clear the front of the net. And that's what they need. And they, like I said, they got that in a bottom pairing role with Lyubushkin, but I think they need another top four guy who could be a penalty killer, play 20 minutes a night and be physical. And that's why like a Manson, or it was, Ristolainen was somebody I thought that they could do the job, but Philadelphia re-signed him. That's the type of guy that they need. And if they don't get that guy, I don't see any change here.
Well, in the beginning, those types of guys weren't identified by the managers of this team who were drawing up plans through analytics and analytics only, right? And then what we realized is you need some real people, real players, real emotion, real compete to do things. And what it's been since then is just a patchwork and a mishmash and kind of a bizarre flea market type of acquisition spree that really hasn't amounted to much. Yeah, Mike, I'm kind of lost for words here. Last one, need more cowbell. What is the war doing to the prospect pool across the league? What's the value of a Russian prospect right now? I don't know if you want to go there, or is that a good question?
That's a great question, and then something that I mean, I've talked about this on the Buzzcast with Russ Cohen, who's a prospect guy. How the war in Ukraine will affect the stock of Russian players, not because it's affecting their value, it's affecting the ability of getting that player over here. The Leafs signed one of their 2020 draft picks, Ovchinnikov, Russian winger. I asked the question, did they get him over? Because they'd signed him and they were in the process of getting a visa for him. I don't know yet. I still don't know whether he's here or whether he's still in Russia. If he's still in Russia, it might be in trouble getting him over here. And from what I heard, the NHL has, they didn't really have a transfer agreement with the KHL, but they respected each other's contracts. Now it sounds like that that gentleman's agreement's over with. I don't know whether we're going back to the day where the Buffalo Sabres are sneaking Alexander McGillney through Finland to get him.
Looks like it. It
yeah,
looks like it.
Right. So I mean, if I was, and obviously we're thinking of the best for Rodi and Amarov and his health situation, but if the Leafs had a guy like Askarov, the goaltending prospect, or one of the top Russian prospects, I would be worried that they're not gonna be able to get this guy over here. So,
well, I'd rather see what's happening stop and things get back to normal than Rodi and Amarov going anywhere. I could
understand
in the greater scheme of things, what's happening right now is effing scary. It really is.
It is.
And yeah. We'll leave it at that. OG's Converse, thanks for your comments in the chat. We're not ignoring them, but we do encourage questions in community because that's just the old-fashioned way. So when you leave a question there, we'll do our best to get it into the show. We'll wrap up here in a couple of minutes. Eric Shulgren, Mike, the savior.
Well, 25-year-old goalie, was an Arizona draft pick, went to the Finnish league, went to the Swedish league, won a an SHL title with Vaxo last year. They signed him to a contract. He's been the workhorse for the Marlies. Put up decent stats,
Yeah.
but I think this is more of a reward in a sense that I don't know whether he's a legitimate NHL prospect. They liked him. They're giving him an opportunity, but Joseph Wall played better in the NHL than he has at the Marlies last year. So I think they're just giving. And I believe Shalgren is waiver exempt, so they can move him back and forth from the NHL to the AHL. So they're going to give him an opportunity. But I looked at the schedule. The Leafs play 10 games for the rest of the month of March, and there's time in between those games. So I'll bet you anything Mrazek plays 8 or 9 of them until Campbell comes back.
So we have a goaltending situation.
Oh, yes.
The defense isn't complete. The offense is what it is. You have Hansel and Gretel not performing to the level that we're expecting them to right now, but that could change on a dime. And then you have Auston Matthews having one of the greatest seasons a Leaf has ever had, will most likely be the greatest, and could run the table on these top offensive individual awards. Mike, again, just to retract what I said in the last show about not caring whether Matthews achieves these things because I'm more concerned about the team. 100%, I'm doing a 180 on that. I'm focused on Matthews having this incredible season, and I'm going to really enjoy it and give this guy his due. He's unbelievable because the way I'm looking at it right now, these are the best of times. This is as good as it's going to get. Whatever he can provide, I'm just not feeling this organized. I'm not feeling this team the way it's put together right now. What I'm seeing from it being the type of team that will, eclipse this this limit that has held it back for so long. Mike, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be negative, but I'm going all in on 34, and whatever the hell else happens. Last word to you.
I mean, I'm sure there's a significant segment of the fan base that feels the same way, but I know that after sitting in the crowd on Tuesday, they love the fact that Matthews is one of the best players in the league. They love the fact that he's scoring like crazy. I was talking to a few people, and it says it means nothing if they don't make a run in the playoffs. The playoffs are where it matters. So enjoy it while it lasts, and then we'll see what they do in May.
Yeah, and looking back, Rick Vive's teams may have accomplished more.
They advanced. They advanced a round or so before he got traded to Chicago. So we'll see.
You and I will catch up early Sunday before the Heritage Classic, then we'll get you on your way, and just take it day by day and enjoy what we can. These are the best of times, my friends. For Mike, I'm Norm. We're out.